Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? A little bit of a different stream time, but for good reason. This is a little bit of a special stream. I've been excited to get this one going, and it's been in the works for a little bit. But time zones are hard, hence the different stream time. So I'm excited to bring on Yu-Wei. Yu-Wei has been a big part of Tauri and worked on all those the internal bits that you might not see once you get up into the higher abstractions of Tauri. But the work that Yu-Wei has been doing and everybody else on the team is really exciting, and I want to kind of bring him on and go through the history, go through the how we got to where we are and where we're looking to go. So feel free to give yourself a little bit of an introduction and how you got into the project, Yu-Wei.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Yu-Wei. I'm one of the members from Tauri, but I usually work its upstream dependency and one of the crates or repository called Tauri mostly. So you usually won't see me working with Tauri mostly, but I usually will maintain or trying to resolve triage or issues more deeply or more upstream usually. So that's probably me.
And so before Tao and Wry, we're going back probably years at this point. We were on was it, I can't remember if it was like C or C++ version of a library that handled the webview, and then we decided to rewrite in Rust. And I think that's about when you started getting involved.
Yeah, that's a very interesting history. But there was a repository called webview, but it's a C library, and at that time I was just very nobody but a very active open source contributor, really eager to try my best to contribute any kind of repository I want. So I come up with that one, but I feel like the limitation very quickly that I found nobody else really able to nobody else able to extend every feature they want into that repository. Then I feel like maybe it's a really good time I can write another one myself, and but this time I can maybe try myself in Rust, because I'm also interested in how to do it in Rust. so the first part I try my best to is porting in Linux, and that's actually very easy part because I know GDK pretty well. I come from the background with GDK programming and Qt programming, so those part is not really difficult to me. And then I opened my Mac and then ported it to Mac OS. It's not that hard, but the most difficult part is the Windows, because I have no any idea how Windows 33 programming it is, and it's very difficult for me. And that part stuck me for like 1 year or half a year. I forgot about it. It's so for a very long time Tauri had to use WebView, and I am kind of afraid to share my library because I don't really have any idea how to achieve it on Windows. But one day I forgot the reason why I achieved it, but I forgot. I remember it. So one day I believe Microsoft also decide that they want to adopt Rust, and they have a bunch of example how to do it, and that's the time I finally have a reference for me to actually achieve it. Yeah. So ever since, so yeah.
So we had the library written in C, and then you had started working on rewriting it in Rust.
Yes.
And that was more of a. We were pretty much just trying to do a port into Rust at that point, right? We weren't.
Yeah.
Was that your first Rust project?
At the beginning.
Were you into Rust before then?
Not my first.
Okay.
Yeah, I have wrote a few Rust before then, but it just
Yeah, I mean, you find a
Just
project
a
and
few
you,
code.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say that's kind of that's gonna be a gnarly
Tar-
code base to start with for your first Rust project, if that was.
Yeah, Tauri was one of my early project I really actively contribute to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tauri is definitely the first project that really got me into Rust. I had done some other open source participation or work before then, but there's a lot of new in Tauri, so it's been a real fun ride. But okay, so you basically we did a lift and shift. We had the existing WebView library that worked in some regards, but we were having trouble extending or modifying, written in C, and we switched to Rust. And you said you got Linux. Linux was the easy one, and then we finally got into Windows, and that was the difficult one. Where did WebView 2 come into the picture? Because that was a pretty big deal, I remember, right, for Windows?
Yeah, that actually the time I have difficult with. I forgot its previous one. So basically, Microsoft was also have trouble with using its previous one. I forgot the name, the previous Edge implementation. But anyway, they decided to dump it and use Chromium ever since, and provide another library called WebView 2. But at the time I was trying, it's already starting using WebView 2. It's probably also one of the reasons I have trouble to actually adopting it and or rewriting it. But I would say the outcome is actually very great because it's more maintainable. Everybody can actually contribute to it. So for Linux, for example, it's GDK. I can actually load it, and everybody familiar with GDK can already start contribute to it. And for WebView 2, on Windows, we have a very accident, very beautiful accident. There's actually one Microsoft employee, I believe, starting to contribute to us as well. You know, he actually helped us to improve all our code base overall. So I really appreciate it. You know, once I had done the basic structure, ever since I didn't really actually to write a lot on Windows code. It's actually Emmer and another one. I forgot the name, but he's actually already sorry, not the maintainer, the board, Tauri board, I believe. Nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Can give me a second? I have my phone.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I think. Was I hitting? I feel like I've been hearing it. I'm hearing it. What the heck? I've getting an echo. I think I'm getting an echo, but I can't tell if it's where it's coming from, or a mic buzz. Maybe it's gone now. You try talking again. Oh, yeah. Did your phone have something to do with it? I can't hear you now. Is your mic? Are you using your AirPod mic or your MacBook mic? I think you might be on your MacBook mic right now. Because you went quiet all of a sudden when your phone rang.
Can you hear me?
There we go. That sounds a lot better.
Sorry.
There we go. No worries.
I think it's the my iPhone automatically switched my source to the iPhone.
It's both the ecosystem, I feel like, is both a blessing and a curse. It does things magically, but sometimes it magically does things you don't want it to do.
Because I mean usually when you have a C library, you have to maintain on your own, and
Yep.
there will be a lot of issue list, and nobody could help. I would say that's the typical, typical C experience.
Yeah, and the like
Yeah,
you were
but for
saying,
Rust, it's different.
the WebView 2 stuff really was such a big deal too. We were having, I think it was just called WebView or WebView 1. But that was, I think that was before Edge switched over to Chromium. So that there was like a transition period, I think, but it was before Edge was based on Chromium, and it was using Edge, but the like, was it based on Internet Explorer? I think it was based on Internet Explorer. But there was a whole bunch of like shifting things around a little bit, and then they got onto WebView 2, and now Windows has started building on top of WebView 2 in a big way, including not just like releasing the thing, but using it in their own like I think it's used on like the Xbox web store and stuff like that now too, which has been really great to see. Like you said, I feel like that has had a big effect on being able for us to build on top of that and ship. Because I remember we had a lot of issues with that, and just getting the thing to install. Hey Amr, good to see you. Have a great evening, morning.
Hello.
Yes, time zones, right?
It's far too early for me, but I'm still.
We were trying to figure out these time zones, and I'm like kids and family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're like, what, got to be like 14 or 15 hours difference or something like that. 15, I think. That's a lot. Either way. Yeah, so WebView 2 was a big deal. And that basically got us to Tauri version 1, right? Because that WebView 2 happened probably around, we were in like alpha or beta, I think is what it got us to. Does that sound right?
I mean, at the time I'm working on this already using WebView 2, and I have to. I don't see any other choice. I have to actually port it. And at the beginning, I would say the most difficult one is how to port it. But after Microsoft also stepped in, starting to adopt in Rust, I saw a lot of example and reference, and then it becomes no problem. Ever since, it becomes very easier, more and more easier for me.
That was with the Windows crate, right? Windows.rs. That was one of those big the big moves from Windows.
Otherwise, before that, there's only one crate called Win API, which is just Win32. But Win32 didn't also offer many options to utilize or trying to connect with WebView 2. So that's why I have a lot of trouble with. But once there's a Windows crate, I found there's another way. So it become more and more easier.
Yeah.
And I believe nowadays I just hand all the work to Amr and also other ones to help us. And actually very funny, the Microsoft staff also trying to build a dedicated WebView 2 crate, so we don't have to maintain ourselves. He try our best to actually code-gen hold the API from WebView 2, so we actually just need to import the crate in Rust, and voila, we don't have to do any kind of library linking or whatever. It's become very easy nowadays.
Oh, yeah, that's a big difference from what it used to be. So then I guess that when that would happen, because we're already kind of doing that linking, bringing in outside crates for Linux and GTK, right? Is that the same story on Mac? I don't recall offhand how Mac is. Do we have to do
for the Mac story? It's I would say it's actually easier. The whole Mac's So basically, when you come to Mac, you have to work with the Objective-C runtime. It's literally the de facto like system. I don't know, it should be ABI. It probably should call API, but it's funny because a lot of Objective-C kind of feature is actually built into API, and you have to work with the LLVM kind of definition to work with it. But anyway, they have a Objective-C runtime, and you can call directly from it, and it didn't have any problem, I have to say, because at the time I started working on that, Mozilla already have a crate for it, Coco, UI kit, whatever wrapper for it, WinIt, for the majority of UI ecosystem in Rust also already have a lot of crate from it. I don't encounter many difficulties.
That's pretty cool.
Linux and Mac OS actually very easy for me. I took like just one week to achieve all for them. But it took me 1 year to finish up.
That's I mean, I'll be glad. I'll be glad once Windows kind of starts to get to the point where they've, are releasing their WebView 2 crate, because I think that'll let us move a lot faster. So I guess that kind of takes us to where we are with the present in Wry. You've been involved with Tao as well, which is the windowing part of things, right? Or is that? I don't know. Emer's in the chat.
I would say it is what it is. it's not a crate I really like, but at the time we're trying to work with WinIt. Basically, there's a window library called WinIt, but at that time we didn't really know how to work with it because we are using GDK on Linux. But for them, they say GDK is like a third-party library. They don't want to use it. Basically, the Linux ecosystem is very fractured. If you want to say very pure this on the GUI purely, it's always just X11 and Wayland. So the WinIt ecosystem only built around X11 and Wayland. If you want to use GDK, you use it directly without WinIt. But we are using WinIt on Mac OS and Windows. So at that time, I'm trying my best to hold the difference between them and trying to maybe build the same API based on it, but it's very difficult. And we also have a board member called David. He's very against of it. He's trying to add every feature they want, but the WinIt is it's at that time. At that time the WinIt maintainer very very against every single PR they open in WinIt from David. So he's very angry about it, and then I also not happy with it. For example, we want to add the menu items API, menu features, and also the I believe is the status notification. There's a window will be pop up on your window, and you can have some text or notification from it. They also don't like it. So every single API we want to put in WinIt is always rejected at that time. So I feel like maybe we should forget and change the API on Linux to GDK. So that's how the Tao's origin. But the problem from it is we have to maintain this ourselves.
Yeah. So that it was more about the maintainers of WinIt not wanting to just vastly expand the scope of their API, right? Like that was pretty much the basis of most of the reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Which I think we can all understand, but at the same time, it's like it's not great to fork a project.
Yeah. But nowadays, I believe they change their mind, or I would say, there are different maintainers have different voice or have more control of the project, they are willing to add the GDK or add more API base on their communities. We see as their version more progress, we see more and more features starting to add into their repository. Yeah, and they're also open to maybe adding GDK, but they are more story for me. We can talk about later. We also trying to work with them ever since.
Yeah. It's never been like there hasn't really ever been like animosity there. It's just what we're looking for out of the library is different than what maintainers, at least when we were originally looking at it. Just we were here and they were here. So I like, we were interested in adding the menu buttons, and that's part of what we created. Amra was pretty involved with was it Muda? Menu utils, and what's Muda stand for? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's all called Muda. It's
yeah.
The reason we want to move it away from it is because we starting to find out that the burden of the maintenance on Tao, we feel like it's more and more difficult to maintain every feature into one crate. So we're starting to make every feature more and more modular that Tauri can use it.
Mm-hmm.
So Muda is one of it, but nowadays we also have the Tauri workspace, right? We also have a workspace to collect every single feature based on it. So Muda is one of it. We also have the tray icon, I believe, and there are more and more crate or plugins, I would say, in the Tauri ecosystem nowadays.
So Muda was originally within Tao, or written within Tao, right?
Yeah.
And then it was abstracted. Okay, that makes sense. I couldn't remember if like once Tao and that whole part of the project started evolving, I was like, oh boy, the surface area of Tauri got really hard to follow, and unless you're doing it full time. So basically what we ended up having was we wanted additional APIs within Winit. They were resistant, so we did sort of a soft fork, we'll call it, and added all these APIs to Tao, and we've been using it through Tauri version 1. But is this more gonna end up being more of a Tauri version 2 thing, where we start to make the swap to these smaller pieces that we've been like pulling back out of Tao? Or is this?
This is also one of the main features for Tauri 2.
Okay.
Each feature can be more modular. You can. I believe this is also what other frameworks do,
Mm-hmm.
or like React, Vue, and maybe Flutter, whatever. They also make this kind of feature more modular. If you want it, you plug into it.
Yeah, and I mean it's one of those things too, that it's like a pre-optimization thing where it's difficult to know what layers of abstraction are going to work well until you've gotten into this situation. So I feel like we've gotten into this situation, and now we're ready to pull pieces out, and we kind of have a good feel for what those layers of abstraction look like. So I know on the stream we've experimented with some of the effect of the abstraction is maybe the best way I'd put it, and maybe that's a good place where we can start getting into what you see or what you're interested in for the future of Tao and Wry. I know on stream we did the Amr had the multiple the RFC for the multiple web views.
That one is I really exactly to see that one. Once they already done, I am trying my best to actually help it. I would say it's a feature I very looking for it a long time, and what should have done for the beginning. So supporting the multiple web view is a very, I would say it's very good start. We can starting to maybe move away from Tao, and we can also accept from every majority of the ecosystem, as long as they can provide more. How to say that? There's a critical role window handle. As long as they can provide us a handle, we can create any window from it, so we don't have to depend on Tao anymore. But that's only for Wry. For Tauri, at the moment, you still have to using the Tao crate. But I would say it opened a lot of features and open a lot of opportunities. You don't have to actually stick to it. At least for Wry crate, and I very looking for it. And that's, I would say, once it's done, I saw a lot of how to say that, a lot of possibility for it. So I actually started working on it. I opened a GitHub discussion about my future, the future of that crate, the Wry crate. So one of it is Servo. It's a new web engine written in Rust, but it got abandoned by by Mozilla. It's kind of shame, but the very interesting part about this web engine is a lot of dependency or what they've done is actually already used by Firefox.
Is it still after Mozilla kind of abandoning it?
Yes.
Is it still used within? Okay.
It's actually a very sloppy layoff. It abandoned every step, and then they find out a lot of crate they are already using. They cannot getting away from it, so they still have to hire some people again, and then trying to maintain those crates.
I was very disappointed in those moves, partly because I wanted to see this thing succeed rather. But it's on the topic of Servo, we had touched on this a couple times on stream, but we've started getting involved, and I know you've been playing around with it. And
I would say it's still very rough trying to play with it. The thing didn't look pretty great. It's very premature. But the Servo engines actually have a few things done pretty great. One thing is the CSS parsing. When you see the benchmark around between Firefox and Chrome, you will see the CSS parsing. The Firefox actually outscore Chromium when it comes to CSS parsing. That's because also there's a crate around it. It's actually written in Rust, and there's also web GL and web GPU benchmark. Also Firefox also outscore Chromium. It's also because it's written in Rust. It's a critical WGPU, and it's not only used by Servo as well. It's actually used by a lot of other Rust GUI ecosystem or gaming ecosystem. Like projects like Bevy, Yu-Wei, and ICD. They all using these kind of crate already.
Yeah, we've done a couple streams on WGPU stuff. I've been sort of like playing around with and tooling around with all of the base level components that Tauri is like built on or adjacent to. And I was slowly working my way into like understanding and helping others understand like all the little pieces that come together that eventually build into what Tauri is. So we did a stream on WGPU and WebGPU, and we've done some with playing around with Bevy and Yu-Wei. And we pulled in a Bevy app with the RFC for the multiple web views. So we did the web view on top of a Bevy app with that raw window handle. So the going back a little bit, I was going to ask before, was that raw window handle? Is that raw window handle crate a newer thing? Is that, or has that been around for a while?
It's an old thing, but
okay.
But at that time, I believe we didn't think it's a great thing to buying into so deep level. Once you have to do it, you have to work with everything very under level. It's not just the abstraction or raw script you have to work with. You have to work with yourself in all the underlying API from any platform. For Linux, you have to work with even X11 and Wayland. And for Windows, you have to work with whatever whatever Windows offer. And I would say COM project object mostly.
Okay.
But nowadays we have more experience from it. I believe Emmer help a lot from on Windows as well. So we can start actually trying to port it. So it becomes it was a challenge before, but it becomes a possibility now ever since. So we can actually handle it, and that's why we can actually bring the broader multi-window features.
And it seems kind of like the benefit of building on top of it wasn't there until the rest of the ecosystem was sort of also doing that too.
Do you mean other frameworks?
I guess like has Winit always been using that raw window handle?
No, it did. Also didn't really use it very often. They also have a OpenGL library called Gluten. They didn't really use the raw window handle. They're very tightly coupled with Winit before, and people have a lot of trouble to use it. So from time to time, they also trying their best to moving away to tightly couple from Winit, and nowadays they also offer you can using raw window handle to create a window. To create a gluing app or OpenGL app from it.
Okay. Yeah, like I feel like that piece is the once everybody is sort of adopting these like more base level things, then the value of building on top of it really becomes useful. So the I guess coming back a little bit to Servo, right now we're supporting within Wry, presuming the WebView 2 stuff ends up getting picked up and handled by Windows. For the most part, we're kind of like Wry is making bindings to GTK, WebView 2, and I can never remember Max.
It's called on Mac. It's called WK WebView.
Yes.
WK is abstraction for WebKit, I believe. So it's basically called WebKit WebView.
Okay. Yeah. And which is WebKit, right?
Yep.
And so what Servo could end up serving is basically, instead of being locked into those single options for each of the operating systems, it would be very much in the vein of like Chrome embedded or CEF, except we could use Servo. Is that is that a fair comparison, comparing Servo to what CEF is doing?
If user wanted, it probably will come to CF. CF is called for short for Chromium embedded framework, I believe.
That
sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know this project for a long time, even at the beginning, but I kind of feel guilty to say that, but I would say I didn't adopt it because I don't really buy into Chromium's future for a long time. I using Firefox as my daily driver, and we already saw a lot of trouble to using Chromium for a long time. People saying, for example, for recent news, even Chromium say we are going to abandon ad blocks. Is it ad blocks or some kind of plugin? So I really don't.
With their manifest v3 or whatever.
Yeah. That one. Yeah. So for very long time, I really, when it comes to me, if I have an option, I really don't want to add any kind of possibility from Chromium.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw a lot of requests from the community, Tauri community. They want more and more features and not just the web features, and sometimes even from the Chromium. Chromium itself also have more personal, or I would say breaking the web API features like webview tag. You can easily create another webview underlying your web page to just adding a HTML tag based on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also other features like that. So I'm also brought up this kind of options in my GitHub discussion about the future of the Wry and the future of the Tauri.
Mm-hmm.
So CF possible, and I actually have a rapid crate already built on it, but I haven't actually connect to the Tauri ecosystem yet because it's a lot of work, and
Yep.
if I have my option, I prefer just
Servo.
doing servo first. Yeah, servo first.
Yep.
I know it's not, it's not feature ready, it's not whatever, but it's just my personal preference. I more prefer to maybe build everything from the ground up and see the possibility.
Yep.
I think one of the advantage, rewrite everything in Rust is it become very modular. You can use whatever feature you want to that project, even from Servo. But for Chromium like CFDs, you have to just compile everything and build into one blob. So that's why you see Electron or a lot of application features, always have like hundreds of megabytes, because they build in it. They always like compile a standalone Chromium into their app. So that's the only solution from them.
And maybe to summarize, for those that aren't familiar with CEF and Chromium, the Chrome and any of the other flavors like Edge and Brave and a couple of those other browsers, they're all built on top of Chromium. Chromium is also basically run by Google, and Google has been pushing towards greater control over the browser ecosystem in a way that seemingly benefits their ad revenue, which is what when we were talking about Manifest v3, one of the features of Chromium is browser plugins, and they're updating the version of browser plugins to from v2 to v3, and in that process they're kind of there's a bunch of plugins that are built for ad blocking. They're sort of like cutting those off at their knees for no real reason seemingly, other than just to bolster their ad revenue. So that that's the background. If you hear anybody kind of talking about it and being wishy-washy, not feeling great about necessarily supporting that ecosystem, it feels like there's animosity from those sort of movements are not something that the web community is going to necessarily, or the greater ecosystem is going to appreciate. So that's part of the CEF consideration, and then the other part is, like you were saying, we would have to ship basically this whole binary blob. You get all of Chromium, and that's why these downloads are so big, because you're basically shipping a whole browser with your app, right? So in a similar situation, if we would want to try to ship Servo with a Tauri app, we would also be in that same. We'd also kind of have that same situation, right? We're basically shipping a whole browser.
But for Servo, I would say it's probably just we'll stay for experiment port, or just it will stay as a hobby or not product. I would say it won't be production ready for years. It will just like I prefer to build it around the just a hobby, and maybe attract more and more people that are into it. That's just my plan. That's just for Servo. But for CF, I would say that's because the request from the community,
Mm-hmm.
and I already prepared for it. And the good news is it's already working. I can already build from it, add a wrapper around it, and the more I try to build it, I feel like it's more and more reasonable, I would say, at least on Linux, because on Linux we are using the WebKit GDK, and it's not really like feature complete in some sense. Like it didn't provide WebAuth, it didn't provide WebRTC. So if you want to build the app from it, it will have trouble on Linux. So that's one reason. And another reason on Linux is because there are so many package formats on Linux, and I found out that in the end, everybody just copy every dependency into their application into that format. For example, we are using the app image, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They also trying to copy every dependency into the package and then install in the user's environment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also other format like Snap and Flatpak. They also trying to install every single package in their bundle. So even if we use WebKit GDK, we will have to copy a certain version from it. So I found out maybe it's already like our bundle size is already 100 megabytes. It will be the same if we just adopting the CEF.
And that's strictly on Linux, though. It's just the way that Linux is packaging thing.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think having options is nice, because when you're building an app, you don't necessarily need to be, depending on the use case, your app might only be serving a single platform. Like you might not have an app which needs to serve Linux, and then that might affect the decision on how you if you would want to use something like a built-in WebView, or if you'd want to try to go this route with CEF or Servo. Going back, Raj asks, is Servo support coming for iPad and iOS? And maybe to fill in a little bit of the blanks there, so as I understand, anything on Mac that uses like WebTech or WebView has to use like their built-in browser. If we would work with CEF or Servo, would that have the same situation when we start talking about mobile? Would we be able to is Servo going to be a desktop only kind of platform at the moment, or at least probably for the foreseeable future?
The funny thing is the original Servo is actually for WebXR. It's about the VR and AR instead. They actually built for a long time ago. I forgot what's the product from Windows. They also have an AR device before. I forgot the name.
HoloLens?
But anyway, probably. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, it's possible to build Servo in Android. They also have a product for Android, iOS, whatever. But you can build on iOS. But I don't believe Apple will accept it.
Yeah. Okay. So it would end up being more of an Apple Store issue rather than a technical. Are we able to do it?
But I believe Tauri can already build on iOS, and I saw Jonas share some comments or tweets that he also successfully built on the Vision OS or whatever VR headset called. We can actually build a Tauri app on that VR headset. It's kind of
that's pretty wild.
Funny, but very wild, I would say. But it's also very cool, I would say.
I think that's the because obviously we can't do everything at the same exact time. We need to have an initial scope, and then we can slowly expand the scope from there. And even just mobile is a big enough scope. But I think my personal interest is seeing Servo succeed and in a way that we could support platforms that are outside of kind of the like, Linux, Mac, Windows, and then the two mobile platforms, Android and iOS. Because there's, like all the kids in the US, I feel like have Chromebooks, and Chrome OS is becoming a real big thing. And there's like the Raspberry Pi platforms, and like there's different compute chips like RISC. I think that kind of those spaces are my personal interest to start seeing things succeed. Because those feel like they're underserved for the type of app that we could produce.
For myself, I'm also trying my best to participate in several projects. My expectation is, I would say, it's because the Rust project, the difference between the C+ project and Rust project is you can always make the Rust project more modular, and everybody can use it. We already see, even Servo have trouble to survive nowadays. It still contribute a lot of dependency. It's dependency to the ecosystem. Like we already mentioned the CSS parser, and we are also using an HTML parser. The parser Tauri use it actually come from Servo, and we already also see the WGPU survive, very thrive into the ecosystem. Every single GUI frameworks are already using it. And I hope we can extend this kind of feature from the future, starting by building the Servo. If this kind of standard come to like Chromium or Firefox, for example, you will want, if I want to render a PDF, for example, using the Chromium code base, you probably could not extract every single code from that project. You will have to build everything, compile Chromium into a blob first, and then starting to use it.
So there's potentially a future where we could, considering most of our lower level code is Rust or Rust based, we could potentially compile. We could compile a Tauri app with Servo, but just the pieces that we would actually need. Is that fair? Is that a reasonable reality?
I hope so.
Cool. I hope so. It feels like it should be, right?
Yeah, I think it's possible, and I think my plan in the future or in the coming years is probably trying to make the Servo more maintainable at first, and once it's stable, we can start to build a few things, and those things can become like standalone crate. Everybody can even use it. So even you don't use Servo directly, even Tauri cannot. I would say, or maybe the users of Tauri doesn't see the Servo as a viable option, they will still end up being able to use some parts from Servo. For example, the WGPU we mentioned, and maybe we will build a PDF crate for it in the future. So everybody want PDF features, they can just import that crate and start using it, etc. So that might become a feasible feature, and it's also my personal goal. I would like to. I would like to achieve.
As a little bit of background, Raj's question, so Servo as a project came out of Mozilla, which is the company that builds and maintains Firefox, and that's also where the Rust project started, and they developed all this tech and started using Servo as a way to see if they could improve the performance of the browser, and that those pieces started making their way into Firefox. And then Mozilla decided to do a bunch of layoffs, and things happened, and Servo is kind of now more of a I think it's more of a community project. Is it still? It's still technically owned by Mozilla, though, right?
No, it's no longer
completely separate
by Mozilla. Yeah.
So technically Servo is a browser, that is written in Rust from the ground up, but it's not feature complete in comparison to something like Chromium. So you wouldn't be able to say, presuming we get Servo working with the Tauri ecosystem, if you would ship an app with Servo, you're not going to have all the same features you'd expect if you're shipping an app that was hitting a WebView, or you know, an Electron app or whatever that's using a Chromium. And that, I think that comes back around to what Yu-Wei was saying, where we suspect that Servo is going to be more of a hobby type project as far as Tauri is concerned. If we can get it working with Tauri in a way that somebody could use it, it's going to be more of a, we understand the limits. You're using this because you want to support and you want to see Servo succeed kind of situation. So to answer your question in a short way, Raj, yes, but it's not quite there yet. And if you do want to get involved, it's a deep project. I've always been interested in it, but I don't have the capacity to contribute in a big way. But they're starting to see both financial and community interest, which is good to see. So hopefully that changes. And I know Yu-Wei has been involved with a bunch of that, right? And they've also been working with is it Ilgalia? Is that the company that's been?
Yeah, that's the company trying to support it as well. But they are also like a purely research group. I would say one of the difficulty for developing Servo is the funding.
Yeah.
Because we Mozilla didn't maintain it, you know, but and it's a pure open source project for free for everybody else. So it's very different from the traditional browser you will imagine. You know, for every single browser, they always have a corporation that can maintain it. They will have a consistent funding. The Servo right now still experience trying to find more and more stable funding from it. So, you know, when it comes to feature parity, I would say the main blocker is because of this, and one of my goals is trying to find more and more consistent funding that can aid this project.
And is there parts of Servo that are further along than other parts of it? Like, is everything sort of at the same level of done, or are there, like, is the CSS parser or HTML further along than, say, the JavaScript implementation?
No, they are still maintaining and developing from it. They also have, I would say, the good thing is they still maintain it. The sad thing is they also find it very difficult trying to maintain it because they are short for people. But at least, you know, it's Rust ecosystem. You know, everybody would like to help. So, you know, for example, the HTML5 ever, CS parser, etc. Those kind of crates still have people willing to help and trying to update it and fix it. So I would say there's no problem, at least for those kind of crates.
Okay. One of the futures that I would hope to see in the near term would be, especially as we're starting to get more Rust frameworks which are targeting web platform, like Leptos, say. I think those might be in an interesting position where we could, if especially in a Tauri app, if we can have a lot of the logic contained within Rust or within WASM, that might be a way that we could use Servo in a way which we aren't going to be just like immediately handicapped by missing features. So
I actually have some thought about it. I'm actually thinking about maybe Servo can be a pure WASM implementation, because nowadays, you know, when you want to use WASM, you have to add a lot of wrapper. The DOM interaction isn't native. You actually build still JavaScript. So the more and more I'm thinking about it, maybe maybe it's possible to add it, but I'm not sure yet. It's still a little bit probably too early for Servo, but I'm also preparing for it.
Yeah. This is. It feels like all of these thoughts and ideas are like 5-10 year projects, but anybody watching, throw money at the project. I would love to see it be pushed along. I think that's probably the parts where I'm most interested in using it. If we were able to like put a whole bunch of effort into Servo and get it up to the point where it's like on par with Chromium, I don't feel like its best or its strength is going to be a drop-in replacement for Chromium. I feel like the fact that it's written in Rust and has a different background, and the fact that we could pull it in an Tauri app means that we would have more ability to optimize. And I think that's those are the bits that I'm really, really interested to see succeed. Pull in something like Leptos and, like you said, maybe a pure WASM implementation. We could still get the benefits of the web and CSS layout and design parts of it, but then we can get the benefits that we see in writing in Rust and the speed and performance and safety issue or safety considerations. So I think that's definitely where I'm most curious and interested to see things pushed forward. But I think we're coming up to about the end of time. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on? I think we hit about everything that I was interested in really digging into. Raj has an off-topic question. We can touch on that in a second.
I mean, it's probably possible to using Zig in Tauri. As long as we. Sorry, we haven't we haven't provided any API yet, but I would say it's possible. I'm also interested in using Zig, right? Actually, I actually wrote a development code last year using Zig, and it's also very similar tech around that. But
nice.
But I feel like it's probably possible to do it. But
there's been a couple like
Tauri 3.0.
Yeah, I would say there's been a couple like experimental projects, like Dino as well. That the core of Tauri being written in Rust, we could have that compiled separately from like the code that you would include as part of your app, written in like Zig or through Dino or whatnot. But that's definitely not a Tauri 2.0 thing. Tauri Mobile is gonna take up enough effort just by itself. So maybe if you're interested, feel free to drop in the GitHub discussions or in the Discord, and we're always looking for help. Is there? I guess on that note, do you have any like we're always looking to expand the team and get people interested in helping out with the project. Is there places that you would specifically be interested in having people help out, or ways that we could get other people involved in the project?
I mean, Servo is one of it, and for turn right, it's probably okay. We just need issue triage. But I would say for the future of Tauri and for these topics, if you are interested, Servo is one of it. Another thing is CEF. I mean, I already add the wrapper and some experience project. It's literally called the CEF-RS. It's already working. So if you really want a Chromium backend, then maybe trying to give it a try and give some feedbacks. I'm actually, things come to nowadays, I'm actually open to any kind of options. So Servo as an option, I'm okay with it. I would say this is my go-to option. But if you also want the CF port, feel free to comment or contribute, giving feedbacks on that project. I will probably add this kind of also experiment port in next year. at least before the summer, next year summer. So you will probably see a Chromium backend very soon on Wry, and maybe later in Tauri in the future.
Okay.
And also for Servo.
And if somebody was interested in getting involved with Servo, even though people within the Tauri core team are kind of, you're like your connection to Servo isn't necessarily through the Tauri ecosystem. It's sort of like its own.
It's actually reverse. It's actually reverse. I want to build a Wry based on Servo, but Servo at the time I actually want to write it. They lay off everything. They lay off everything. I say, oh shit! Like, I should probably use other option.
Okay. So if you would actually want to get involved with Servo, that's go through the GitHub and the typical open source directions.
I actually want to see how's the experience, because we are trying our best to ease the pain to set up the environment, etc., because you still have to use the C++ to train, or a lot of dependency like the GStreamer, Spider Monkey, etc.
I think I got it running. I remember we talked. Gosh, was it? It might have been last year already. But we were talking about it a while ago, and I had gotten it running. That's as far as I got, and I got it running. Can't remember if that was on Windows or if it was on Mac though.
It's probably Mac, because Windows is very hard. I installed 3 kind of Visual Studio to train and still cannot work with Windows.
Okay. I'll have to check. Yeah.
But if you really successfully build on Windows, please definitely tell me how to do it. How you do it. I also really want to try.
I might I might see if I can poke around with Servo, get others interested in it. But if you're having trouble with Windows, I don't know if that would be something I would want to necessarily do on stream. The part of the doing things on stream is fine, but when you start to get into having to install these lower level tools, sometimes you have to restart. It doesn't work very well when you're trying to stream what you're doing. But
I'm also try my best to maybe get rid of it. A lot of this is because their dependency, not because of Servo. Okay. Maybe a year later we will see this kind of requirement of best setup is no longer required anymore.
The maybe that's where I start to poke around and get involved with it. The that kind of thing is part of what got me into Tauri. Improving the whole CI/CD setup and the dev experience. Cool. Is there any if anybody wants to reach out or follow you on the socials, is there anywhere we should send people other than hit us up on the Tauri GitHub or Discord? Feel free to join in the Servo project. We'll at least see Yu-Wei there. Maybe me eventually, but not at the moment. Should point to people to. I think I actually have stuff in the description. Your Twitter and your GitHub link are in the description. Do you have any closing thoughts? Otherwise, we'll call it a day.
I think I already give my thoughts on it. Cool. Feel free to give any feedbacks on either Servo or CEF. I'm okay with both kind of options. I'm just need times to actually read these kind of port. It will take a few times, maybe a year to actually see it. So if you're really eager to see either Servo or Chromium come into Tauri, it will probably take a whole year later. And maybe next Christmas we can see how it goes. And maybe share the code that how you do Servo on Tauri or how you do Chromium on Tauri.
Yeah. Well, anybody watching, feel free to get involved. We'd love to see help, and maybe we can make that happen sooner than next Christmas. But yeah, I would love to see anybody get involved. And it's been great work on the project, and I definitely appreciate everything that you've done, Yu-Wei. And it's great to see how we've gotten this far. So thank you as always. Thank you for everybody watching. I think it's gonna be normal stream time next week, Tuesday. Yeah, I think so. We don't have to deal with time zones if it's just me. Not saying it's a bad thing. Definitely appreciate you coming in. I'm glad we got it finally worked out. But
I really got that too.
It was good to have you. All right. We'll talk to everybody next week. Have a good week, everybody. Bye.
Everybody.
Thanks, Yu-Wei.